Hi, Joshua.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Welcome to Grief Resilience. We are really excited you're here.
Well, thanks for having me. First time doing this
Well,
live Facebook thing, so it's pretty exciting for me too.
awesome. First time for us and first time for you. Yeah. Um, so I've listened to a little bit of your stuff on your podcast. I've looked at your site. This is fascinating. Like, I can't believe that I came across you because I had been wondering if I was the only weirdo having grief dreams.
Oh no, that's funny. Yeah, a lot of people have that because like no one talks about the topic, and
I
when they
know.
and like just for the my own research and stuff, it's actually more common than anyone really thinks. And I think
It really
that's the most
does.
fascinating thing I've found because I thought it was more
Yeah.
rare like you.
Yeah. So let's back up. If you can start at the beginning, could you tell everybody what a grief dream is? Like, so for maybe people who aren't dreaming.
What is a dream? Yeah, so
Yeah.
so I don't know if you want to wait for people to come in or are we good to go?
I think we're good to go. We already have 9 people here, and I'm sure people catch replays too.
Oh, is
So
that how that works, eh? Okay.
yeah.
Cool, cool. All right,
Yeah.
so when it comes to these grief dreams, I've seen when I started, I didn't think there's going to be a lot different kinds, but there is. So there's dreams before the person's dead that I would consider also a grief dream. And so I'll talk about those a little bit in the sense of there's, if you know someone's going to die, there's these like anticipatory grief dreams where you could have the deceased loved one in the imagery, or you could just have imagery of sort of this sadness that's about to come. So you have a lot of anxiety in
Yeah.
the dream. There's also this other dream, which I think is fascinating. So people will dream of the deceased prior to being notified that the person died. And those dreams, which I think is fascinating, I can't, I'm not
Yeah.
studying it per se, because they don't know that the person's dead. So technically it's not a dream of the deceased because they don't know they're dead
Right.
yet. But I get them a lot, and sometimes they're in dreams with other deceased loved ones, so then I can collect it. But people
Yeah.
will share so much stuff. But anyways, they're having these dreams about, the person saying goodbye, a lot of the same imagery you'd see after the person is dead, but they're seeing it prior to knowing the person's dead. And it just makes me sit in the mystery of life. So those are the two big ones prior. Afterwards, you have the dreams that may represent the loss. So here, it could be like you're running by a mountain and the mountain collapses on you. And it just resemble the heaviness of your grief in waking life. Then you
Yeah.
have these other types of dreams where the deceased is mentioned by a character. Sometimes it could be an angel, it could be God, or there's certain things in the imagery that reflect them. So it could be the hospital where they died, or
Mhm.
an animal or something. The last sort of theme that everyone sort of wants to talk about, so this is what like gets people really going, is the dreams with the deceased in it. And they can be very positive, as I'm guessing a lot of people have sort of voiced or has seen, but they can be very negative in nature and very traumatic. So there's a whole
And I
spectrum
have
of,
questions about
yeah,
those.
yeah, yeah. There's a whole spectrum on what those images are,
Yeah.
but the reality is people haven't really studied the topic. So a lot of people have been left out on what these dreams sort of represent in waking life, what dreams are even occurring. Like I talked to people who have been in the complicated grief field for their whole career, and they've never asked about these dreams. And it's absolutely fascinating because it's not like I found them. Like they've been here our entire life. Like it's not like since probably humans were around, these dreams have been going on, occurring.
Yeah.
But for whatever reasons, there's been a resistance to study them in any meaningful way. So that's sort of that little subject in general. But yeah, so it's good that we're here at a point in our culture that we're accepting of it now, and we're actually really interested in hearing what else can be in the future.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't even realize that there were that many kinds of grief dreams, I guess. And like for me,
Yeah,
I thought
neither did
angels
I.
were all visiting.
Neither.
So that's fascinating. I love that kind of stuff. So did you have specific topics that you wanted to hit on tonight? I can kind of just give you the floor and ask questions if they pop up in the comments, or I have questions for you
You have questions?
either way.
Cool. That's exciting. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Like the one, I
Yeah.
guess, there's a lot of different things I could talk about, right? Like I do talks that are, they could be up to 4 hours. So it really depends on, what you feel. The one thing I do want to mention to go with how common they are is that a lot of people, even though they have these dreams, they don't share them. And the reason being, they don't want other people to tell them what their dream means or if their dream represents something negative in nature. And so a lot of times we hold on to them, positive or negative, we just hold on to them because we're afraid people will say you're not over your grief yet, which there's no relationship to that. I've sort of looked at that. But yeah, people will say, and people don't want to feel like they're not moving forward in their grief, so they sort of keep it hidden. Other times they don't want people to change their meaning. So if someone's spiritual and they have this sort of, amazing, beautiful dream where it tells the person that they're okay and that they still love them, they don't want anyone to say something the opposite, saying, oh no, it's just a dream, or I've heard some people say that's the devil in disguise, which is just absolutely crazy because you try to take something positive and turn negative. That's one way to do it. But yet, these people say that. I've heard doctors say it's because of the medication you're on, which there's no studies on that. So it's just people just talking just at random. I don't know if they're trying to, really hurt them or not, just based on their belief system, but it's not really grounded in any kind of scientific research, and it can actually hinder people on their grief journey. So the big thing of what I'm trying to do is raise awareness to actually tell people what's out there, what I've been finding, and the common trends to that. So yeah, just you can ask some questions, and then I'll probably go off on a little tangents based on whatever you ask.
Yeah, that'll be perfect. I think most of my questions are going to be, if I'm not having them, how do I have more? If they're bad, like what if I don't want to have bad ones? How do I interpret this for myself so that I don't have to listen to other people's weird interpretations of my dreams? I think just the common ones of like, how do I have these dreams and how do I do it more often kind of thing.
Well, that's the mystery. That's what I'm trying to find out, because everyone, I wouldn't say everyone, but a lot of people want to have a positive dream of the deceased. I mean, most people want that feeling. If you're missing them, that can be beneficial to you in many different ways. And one could be confirmation that they've crossed over. Another one that you're still loved. Other times it's not that you're spiritual, but you still want them because you want to see them one more time. You want to have a new memory because the last memory, maybe they were dying. So there's different little reasons why you may want that. Or to sort of see what they would be in the future and to do something with them in the future. So there's so many different reasons why people have them. And I always like to ask people why they want to have them, because I think that's more important than actually having them, because you can sort of realize a lot about your own grief journey and what you're still longing for. And so, because I've heard the reason why I studied, I looked at why some people have dreams and other people don't, is because people were giving me or telling me these reasons on why they thought they weren't having these dreams. And, knowing people, it's never a positive reason. It's just when people are saying stuff or come up with theories, they tend to be more negative. And so people are saying that I never had a dream. It means that they didn't cross over. They're probably trapped in purgatory or hell, or they did cross over, but they don't love me anymore. And they're busy. Like when they go to the afterlife, all of a sudden, they had other things to do. And other people say it was because I had to sell the home and he's mad at me. So he's actually restricting his visit. And so I wanted to give these people a scientific explanation saying maybe it's not any of those. Maybe there's a more simple reason. So I looked at attachment, I looked at personality, grief, gender, age, and then also general dream recall. So how often you remember your dreams in general. And so looking at that, the only significant predictor of all those was general dream recall. And so what it's saying to me is that people are probably dreaming of the deceased more than they're actually remembering them. And so people need to understand that everyone's dreaming throughout the night. but there's still a mystery on why we remember certain dreams over others. So it's the remembering part that's very interesting. And so with that, there's different ways you can increase your dream recall. And so it's funny how many people come up to me and saying, I haven't had a dream of them. I said, oh, like, well, how often do you dream? And they say, oh, maybe, you know, a couple times a year. I'm like, well, then, like, what are the odds of you're probably having millions of dreams and you want this one? You know, like, it's unrealistic to think that. And people, once they connect the dots, they sort of see, and then a lot of their theories go away. Like, oh, it's just because I'm not remembering the dreams. And I think that's a downside to our culture, that we really don't educate people on the power of dreams and how dreams can be meaningful in your life. And so we take for granted all the stuff of the dreams. And our cultures, other cultures actually will talk about it every morning with their families, and it's part of their, you know, their religions. And it's more acceptable. And you would think because of that, they're also dreaming, have a higher dream recall rate because they're looking forward to the night in those dreams. But in our culture, we tend to sort of downplay them a lot. And so I think if people sort of want a dream and they haven't had one yet, there's two things. So the first one is look at your dream recall rate. Can it increase? Like I usually dream about once a night. And then I started doing this technique and I started dreaming about 3 or 4 times a night. So if you want to do that, one way to do it is to start valuing your dreams. So that's the first thing. So value your dreams, start writing them down if you have them, and start talking about them. It's really that simple. Really what you're doing is you're telling your mind that you want to remember these dreams.
That's so easy.
It is easy, I know, right? This isn't hard stuff. And just by doing that, you'll start increasing your recall rate. Just because you're saying, I want to remember these. These are valuable to me now. And before they weren't. So your mind just forgot about them. And so the other big thing that you can do is look at your grief. I didn't really realize this until I talked to someone in one of my podcasts, and she had dreamed of all her deceased loved ones that have passed except for her mom. And so that's strange. It's very strange for me because you'd think you just have them on all of them. But for whatever reason, the mom was absent. But then it turns out that she never really wanted a dream. And the reason was because she didn't want to acknowledge that her mom truly died. Because if you have a dream of the deceased, well, now they're dead. And so we talked about sort of the avoidance, and she didn't even go to the gravesite, right? But once she did, it was interesting, and she stopped avoiding the reality of the death. Then she actually had a dream of her deceased mother. So I think it's fascinating. So it's just one study, or one person I was talking to. But I think after you look at your recall, you can look at your grief and sort of see where you are in that front. But there's probably other reasons too. Like with the study that I did, like gender wasn't an issue either, neither was age. But I didn't find out 100% of the variability. Like I found about 20%. So there's still a lot we don't know, but that's a huge chunk to say, okay, like if you want to really have these, just start remembering your dreams.
Yeah. That's so that's brilliant. So I guess when you said that she wasn't dreaming because she wasn't ready to deal with the grief, I always just thought I was in shock. Like I didn't dream the first couple months, and I've been a very vivid dreamer most of my life, and I was like, oh, it must be the shock. It was probably the avoidance. Now that you say that, I wasn't ready to deal with it. So that's really interesting.
It's tough, right? It's awesome. Tough going through the grief process, and and allowing yourself to sort of be in that space where they are dead, because there's that part of us to say, oh, it's just a bad dream, or they're going to come back. But it's it's very powerful to be able to sit with your grief. It's something that we don't, I think, take pride in, but people really should, because it's a hard thing to do. It's probably one of the hardest things to do in life, is to sit with your own pain, especially after grief. So and these dreams can help with that. And I think this is the amazing thing about these dreams. Like they're not just dreams. Like these dreams can be better than 10 years of psychotherapy. It's like one of these positive dreams or comforting dreams people have can change their grief like nothing I've ever seen before. Like no pill, no conversation, no Facebook Live video. Like there's something about what goes on in those moments that changes people. And for me, like when my father passed away, I had one of those grief changing dreams where I was really sad and depressed, and then the day after, it all went away. And I hear this a lot. I think a lot of people long for that, you know, just because I think they're just don't want to be in pain anymore, right? But there are sort of a lot of people that still have those dreams and they still have pain afterwards, but they use that dream as a form of comfort to remember them in. But so going back, the one reason I think these dreams are so special is because in that dream, there's a sense of love that and peace that I don't think we've ever felt in our entire life, to tell you the truth. Because these dreams will change people if you're spiritual or not. Like there's people that aren't spiritual, they have this dream and their grief completely changes. And it's not like I always thought it's because, oh, people believe in the afterlife and they have this dream. Then all of a sudden they confirm that they're okay and everything's fine. But even people that aren't spiritual, they don't care about that. They have one of these dreams, but they have that feeling of love, that feeling of peace. And then they wake up, it's all sort of, they're back on sort of where they were prior. And I think it's fascinating on what love can do. And I think a lot of meditation is based on trying to get to that place, but it's very, very difficult. But here it's like, it just happened. And that's why I think people don't forget about these dreams their entire life. Most dreams we forget by the time we sort of shower or something. But these dreams, these comforting dreams are just so, so powerful. If one day we could harness like the energy or whatever that is to figure out, you know, what's going on in the brain and harness that, we could do a lot for the human culture in the sense of just helping ourselves sort of through the process of grief, but also life itself.
Yeah, harnessing that feeling, I feel like we could cure most mental issues like
Yeah,
depression or anxiety, and like because those feelings are really
yeah.
powerful.
Well, we never, it's so hard
That's
to achieve
crazy.
them in waking life. And I think, you know, grief's so hard because these people or animals that die, they give us a sense of love. They give us a sense that we're worth it and we're worthy of love. And when that person dies, you're left with yourself. And it's a scary image for a lot of people to just be by themselves and realize who they are. And for the most part, we don't love ourselves as much as we do when someone else is telling us they love us. You know, at those moments, we feel like, you know, we're the best. But then when those people go away, we're left with who we think we are. And I think a lot of these dreams really point out this fact of the journey of grief is really a journey of self-love in a way. And I think that's why most people who have these dreams, they tend to be positive. And this is really rare in a sense of the dreaming literature. So most dreams we have in waking life are negative on average. And then dreams after trauma are even more negative than regular dreams. But for whatever reason, when the deceased is in the dream, they tend to be more positive. And I, you know, like my supervisor and I are still trying to figure it all out on why that is. But it's strange. It's absolutely strange. There's no one that can really explain it because, and so just looking at after pregnancy loss, so people can have dreams of their deceased child, partners and carriers, pet loss, and also spousal loss. What we're finding is that for the people who dream, around like 80%, 90% of people will have these positive dreams of deceased. 40% of people will have these negative dreams. But what's interesting about these 40%, they'll also have a positive dream of the deceased at some point. And so it's just like, so the negative dream is really just almost an after fact of what these positive dreams I think are trying to do for us. And we can talk about these negative dreams. I know that was one of your 9 questions you said to me. But yeah, so I'll talk about these negative dreams, maybe why people have them. So what I've found just by talking to people is that a lot of people have negative dreams because it reflects some part of their loss. Some people have come up to me and said it was a visitation, a negative visitation. I always caution people to not go there. The reason being because dream research says you should be having negative dreams. And so if you should be, let's look at your grief and see if that is playing a role into why this dream is existing for you. Because for whatever reason, you're not noticing it usually in waking life. You're usually avoiding it. And so your mind's trying to say, we need to work on this. And so usually it has to do with anger, guilt, regret. Those are the main ones. And they're usually straightforward. Like I haven't really seen many where I had to sit down for a long time to try to like ask questions about grief and their dreams and see how it related. For the most part, it's really straightforward. And just what comes to mind right now is one dream where a woman is being chased by her husband, her deceased husband, and he was saying that he wants all the money that the woman inherited, and if she gave it back to him, then he would go away and leave her alone and wouldn't harm her or her new partner. And then what she says is that when you look at sort of this dream, the things that point out to you is like, is this a memory, right? The first thing is this a memory? If it is, well, then you have to sort of work on that issue in waking life. So for her, it wasn't a memory. He was actually a very loving man. So, but she was taking it as a visitation. And so the next thing you do is, okay, so what are the main issues? What are the main feelings in here? So the first one is about the money, and the second one is about a partner. So, like if she's dating, then that's gotta be tough. And I've never lost a spouse. And for someone to lose a spouse, then to try to start dating someone and learn to love someone new while they still love the other spouse, I can't imagine how difficult it is, because we're trained in our culture to just love one person. So that was an issue. And then the other issue was this money. And she said that the money was the thing that hurt her the most, because he worked so hard for the money, but yet she's the one that gets to enjoy it. And so she was almost like, she didn't feel that the world was just because she collected all this money from his death. And so she was having a hard time processing having the money. And I bet you she was spending some of the money on the new relationship too, which complicates matters even further.
Yeah.
So for that person, the goal is to sort of make them see how the dream relates to waking life, and then work on that stuff. And find someone, a professional. I always sort of suggest a professional of some sort to really help you work through those emotions, because it's very difficult on our own with the tools we have been given in our society to actually deal with this stuff in a proper way. That's why we have schools for people to go to teach them what we probably should have been taught in elementary school.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing. So
Definitely.
like my big thing is that once you work on that issue, that dream should change. And research on negative dreams shows that. So once that issue changes, your dreams will change accordingly.
Yeah. That sounds way better than all the things I thought it would be in my head,
Oh yeah.
So I definitely So I have a question. So to know the difference between a visitation dream, or maybe you're just dreaming of the person, is it that feeling of love, or like that undoubtable feeling when you wake up and you're like, that was like crazy? Like, is that what you can tell?
Now, some people say, some people on the internet or different talks you may go to will say they know. They don't. They're liars. So don't trust them. You can't tell. And things that I thought would have not been a visitation, like positive dreams, people would say they were. So I've learned along the way, it goes back down to the person, and it's their choice on what they believe. And a lot of times they're asking you because they just want confirmation of what they already know or what they already believe. And they're just like insecure about the dream itself. And so what I always tell people when they ask me if this is a visitation, I said, what does it feel like to you? And I go with your heart, because at the end of the day, if it's helping you in your grief, I don't really care. Like at the end of the day. And the only way to truly know if it is or not is if we could actually talk to the deceased. And since we can't, we rely on dreams. So let it be what it needs to be for you. And, like if you're asking people, think about why you're asking people. Are you really, that suspect of the dream? If it's negative, that's when I step in and say, it's probably not a visitation. Let's look at your grief. But if it's positive, you can think whatever you want to think and go with that. And, people seem to enjoy that answer. So I think a lot of people are just so eager to tell people when their dream is a visitation, because it makes them feel powerful in some way, or as if they know. They don't know. Because a dream could be, I said, like, you could have that really beautiful, quote unquote visitation type dream where the person says they're okay, they love you, they tell you what heaven is like and all that sort of stuff. But sometimes just them in the background will give people that feeling that they're being loved and that everything's okay. So, like, and someone's funny because I went to a talk and someone said those aren't visitation type dreams, and a lot of people in the audience were like self-doubting now if their dream was or not. And that what's crazy about this woman that that said this was like she knew of my research, but yet she didn't sort of talk about any of this stuff. So a lot of people are just sharing bad advice to people, and I don't think she was trying to harm people, but I understand the fact that your answers have an effect on people's grief. And if you say stuff like that to try to feel like you're actually harming people because they felt like they knew. And if they look up to you, then they start changing what they thought their dream was. It's like I've had pastors say these dreams are from the devil. So by telling someone that's like a visitation, but it's a negative visitation, even though it seemed positive, now that person will trust the pastor and think that the devil's haunting them, rather than what it was, just a beautiful dream. And so it's just not all pastors, a lot of pastors have said that, these are from God. So it's just like certain people's belief systems really can harm people, like the bereaved, when they answer a question. They're just not thinking properly. So, if you're having a dream and it's comforting to you, and if you want to believe it's visitation, that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think it's beautiful. If you're spiritual, why not? Because it really, in my research, what I found was these dreams are actually help promote a deeper belief in an afterlife. And I think, like, wow, like not only is it helping you believe that they're okay, but now your faith is deeper. And I think that's such a cool thing.
That is the coolest thing, I think, in grief. For me, I've talked about it in our group, but spirituality is what really helps the healing. So what are some other, we have a few more minutes, what are some other common questions you get, or what are maybe some questions that my audience might have that I didn't think of for them?
You had like 9. I think you only asked 2.
Well, I don't want to take up everybody's time.
So there's like on my website, there's a bunch of questions under grief dreams, like common things, like what kind of dreams people have is a big one, and they're all on there. Yeah, I don't know, like if the audience have any questions, or if you have any more questions. Yeah, there's a ton I could talk about, but I don't know like how much, what they want to know, or.
Yeah, I think so. I think Sarah had a question. I'm going back. So she remembers most of her dreams, and most are traumatic. Whoops. She said, I know from the field of social work that often people repress these during waking life, and then this comes up in dreams. I know this is normal. I can't read the rest. Pull it up here. I think she was asking, like, is there a way for it to be more positive? And I think you said to work through the actual grief, right? Once you start facing the grief, you kind of change the dream.
Yeah, that's the one way. There's other ways to work with nightmares, and I'm guessing that's what she was talking about. So the easiest, the biggest one that will change it is if you worked on your waking day stress. But if people are having nightmares, also it could be due to medication. So if they, so if they didn't have any negative dreams, and all of a sudden they started medication and then they started having these negative dreams, it could be because of the medication just causing more negative dreams within you. It's not producing these dreams of deceased. It's just maybe you're just having more negative dreams in general. But it's, if the deceased in it, I usually say it has to do something with grief, and within the first couple of years, it definitely does. So work on those issues. But if in the meantime, since sometimes it takes a little while to work on your stuff, the next best thing you can do is start to, either if you meditate, or one thing to do is practice rehearsing the dream, and to not avoid the feelings, but to reduce the scaredness of the images. So it's called like systematic desensitization that people can use. It works with phobias, but it also works with nightmares too. So you rehearse the first part of the dreams, and then you try to remain calm. And as you move forward within the dream, the goal is to remain calm all the way through. Because a nightmare is just a nightmare, and many people in the world have nightmares. Like I've had a nightmare, and it doesn't really mean much. When you're having repeated nightmares, that it just gives you more nightmares. But the big thing is that the distress from the nightmares is different than having a nightmare. A lot of people who have nightmares aren't distressed when they wake up. they're distressed in the dream, but then when they go through their waking day, they're fine. Like it's gone. It's not affecting them. But for the most part, when people talk about nightmares, they're referring to the distress from the nightmare, not the nightmare itself. And so that's what the sensitization does. But the other thing you can do is, in the research, it's called dream rescripting. And so it's very similar to what I just shared, but the difference here is you write out the dream and then you change the ending to something more positive. And so this has been shown through meta-analysis that it actually reduces nightmares. So whatever your negative dream is, you change it. You can add characters in, you could do, you could change the ending in some positive way. And by doing that, and then you start rehearsing that. So it's the same thing. You're not avoiding it, and the feelings of the dream will change because now it has a positive ending, and you're not distressed anymore. So you do this for, what they say, I think in the research, they do it for about 2 weeks, and you play it in your mind, like before bed, every a couple times before bed, and it has a significant decrease in the nightmares. So that's the other easy option that you can do if you're having those nightmares, is to just rescript it. But yeah, if it's a traumatic, it's like PTSD and it's a reenactment of the death, you could try that. But the biggest thing for that is, if you have the PTSD, you need sort of to go to professional help to really work through those memories and that trauma.
That's funny so as you're talking about this rescripting, one of our members, Jennifer, was saying that she did the rescripting for a memory that she had with her dad to change the ending. So that's cool that we could do that in our dreams too. So
yeah,
that is
that's
kind
amazing.
of cool.
I'm glad, and hopefully, awesome. I'm guessing it helped her if she did it.
Yeah, she said it was helpful, and that she rewrote the memory with a better version. So
that's amazing. That's awesome.
Like, so it sounds like, from the comments, that people are like, I want to start recalling my dreams. I'm going to practice recall. So do you recommend just getting a journal, and when you wake up, you just write it down, or are there any
yeah, well, there's different ways now. There's like apps you can download. Some people say if you write it down, it makes you wake up. So sometimes people like to go back to bed, and so another thing you do is a voice recorder. But there's apps now that you can actually do stuff with. The other big thing too is, a lot of times if we're having these dreams, we wake up, and when we go to write them down, we forget, because the dream itself hasn't transferred into your short-term memory. So a good thing to do is, when you have the dream, just let your eyes stay closed and rehearse whatever that dream was in your mind, and then wake up to write it down. Because if you just go to write it down, you may forget a lot of the details. So that's another sort of strategy you can do to save more of the details of the dream. But yeah, so the one thing, so anyways, the reason why I say writing it down can actually wake you up, because I was having like 4 dreams a night, and I would always write them down. And it was I was exhausted by the time, because I was like waking up, and it took me like 10-15 minutes to go back to the bed. And so like that was just an interesting aspect of having so many dreams and wanting to recall so many, is that you can also tire yourself out.
Not actually get good sleep.
That's right. Yeah. So now,
so would you recommend?
I was gonna say, what I personally do now is just write down the more meaningful dreams. And then that way I have them collected, and I can go back, and then I can also look back on these more meaningful things, because I think there's a sense in these dreams a lot. So there's some people, if you go on the internet, they'll say, every dream should be looked at. I'm not in that camp at all. I think we get a lot of junk mail, and we get a lot of junk dreams that we don't really need to spend so much time analyzing it, because if it reflects your waking life, spend time looking at your life in your waking day. You don't need your dreams as much, but those vivid ones, they want to be remembered. They want to be, because there's something that you're missing. So I've switched my focus from really looking at my own dreams to now just really looking at my own reality, on where I am in life and my own thoughts, because those dreams are, rather than spending, like an hour trying to figure out what a dream means, just look at your thoughts, and that determines it all, right? Like, because your thoughts are the things that are really making a lot of these negative dreams, or a lot of these other dreams. So really reflect on just your emotions, and that in itself is probably more powerful than looking at a dream.
So don't go to Google and type in every single thing you saw in your dream.
Yeah, it's so bad. Yeah, I should mention that.
what's going on.
You may
You'd
love
probably be more
dreams,
productive
and
to.
that's great. I'm a fan of dreams too. But these dream dictionaries, and it's not a good thing. Everyone's symbols are different because everyone's life's different. It's like if I dreamt of a dog and you dreamt of a dog, and I had maybe a phobia to dogs, it's totally different meaning. And so not only are the symbols different, but how the characters interact with each other isn't reflective in these dream diaries either, or these dream dictionaries either. So don't buy them if you have them, donate them. But yeah, like those can't really give you, I think, what you're looking for. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I get it. I have a couple of them. I got some when I was like 12 years old, and I
Mm.
rarely look at them. So that wouldn't have been
No,
my suggestion.
I started too. I started looking at these dream dictionaries. I didn't know, like I wasn't, profound in the research yet. I wasn't into this, like I didn't know anything about the dream research. But now I do, and I realize, man, this is just total junk that people buy because a lot of people are interested
Yeah.
in it, but people don't know where to go. And I think that's the big problem. And that's why I set up the website and the platform is to allow people that have these experiences to go and see what the research says and to be able to actually find me and ask questions, or the Facebook Grief Dreams Facebook group where you can post your question or post your dream and allow people to comment on it and how it relates to your grief. And I'm always there. And so if people do have questions regarding their dreams of the deceased, feel free to send them my way. Like I don't charge. I just want people to sort of to be comfortable sharing these dreams and to be able to talk about them more and just raise awareness in their own lives about these dreams in general. And I think we talked about prior that a lot of people don't share their dreams, right? And so a lot of people don't think that it's as common as it is. But the reality is, a lot of people say we restrict, but some people restrict their even telling their loved ones about these dreams because they're afraid they're going to get jealous. Like, and so and a lot of times too, a lot of people just don't think about asking about these dreams. We ask about everything else. How are you doing? How's your mood? Like, do you need anything? But let's ask about a little bit about their dreams. Or have you ever had a dream of so and so? And you'll be surprised. A lot of people have, right? Like in my research, I said like over 80% of people, I'll say, right, 86% of spousal loss after spousal loss have had a dream within a year. 86%. That's crazy. And then after pet loss,
Yeah.
it's 71% after a week to 6 months was a time frame. And after miscarriage, it was 50%, and that was within a year. So it's just fascinating. A lot of people have these dreams, and they're positive or negative. And just by asking the question, you can get something off maybe their chest that they don't know where to go, and they don't know, and they won't tell you on their own. But if you ask, it provides this sort of this space for them to feel like it's okay to share.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think anyone's ever asked me about my grief dreams or my dreams in general. So,
have you had a grief dream?
Like you said, if we're trying to have more, we need to be talking about them to dream more, right? So
have you ever had?
Yeah, so I do want to tell the group.
Oh, I can see a question. I see a question.
But
how long have you been doing this research? That's pretty cool. So I've been doing this research for 7 years. Yeah, about 7 years now. That was before I did my own, so that was just in school. So doing my master's, it was about 3 years. And then I'm doing my PhD now, and it's going on 4 years for that. So it's been a long time, but before then I had my own dreams, and then I talked to other people at a grief group. And that's what actually got me in, because they kept asking questions and I didn't really have the answers. And that's when I started researching it. And then I was able to get into a school to actually study it. So, when it comes to actual in school, it was 7 years. That's really cool. I like this thing. Yeah, a little questions and answers. Yeah.
See, the Facebook is awesome because you can answer questions pretty quickly instead of typing.
No, that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
So have you shared your dream yet with the group?
I haven't, and I would love to, because nobody here knows this.
No. Will you share it here, or are you gonna just share it on your own?
I did say, I would love to share if you have time. I know we're over the time, but this video is amazing. So if you have time, I would love to share now.
Yeah, why not?
So like I said, I was a pretty vivid dreamer. Like even as a young kid, I was always dreaming, and I always had a dream journal. And then my mom had passed away unexpectedly, and I was like so upset that I wasn't dreaming. Like, and I was so upset that everybody was sick of hearing me say I'm upset that I'm not dreaming. Like, and so I think it was only about 3 months, and I had a dream, and I called everybody. Like, everybody had to hear about this dream, and everybody thought I was nuts. I was like, my mom came, she was there, and they were like, I think this grief thing's really getting to you. You're like losing your mind. Like, I was like, no, you don't understand.
Yeah.
So in the dream, it was super bizarre because there was no scenery. There was no ground, there was no walls, there was no ceiling, and it was all black. And so the first dream, I had like walked up to my mom, and I was like, Mom, and I was like, I'm so excited. And then after like 30 seconds, I was like, something's wrong. She's not responding to me. Like, why isn't she talking back? And I like went to hug her, and there was like an invisible force field, and I couldn't hug her. And I was like, no. And then like I woke up, and I knew pretty quickly, I was like, okay, if I'm having a dream like that, like, what am I not dealing with? And I wasn't dealing with anything. Like, I wasn't dealing with anything in my grief. Like, I was like running from it all. And then so shortly after that, I had made the decision that I was going to talk out loud to my mom, whether people thought I was losing my mind or not. I was like, I'm creating my own new relationship right now, and I'm just going to talk to her. So I started doing that. And I think when I started doing that, I was working through my grief to her, the ghost mom. And then like right after that, I had a dream that I was at work and I was having the worst day ever. And she met me. I walked out in the parking lot like, I'm going to quit. And she met me in the parking lot and just gave me the biggest hug. It was like, I love you. You're doing great. I know you're stressed out, but it's fine. And then I woke up.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So how'd you feel waking up from that?
I couldn't stop crying. And then I was like, I really am going crazy. Like,
did you, because that's a very beautiful
that dream, I was like, what? I'm sorry.
I was gonna say that was just a very beautiful dream to have.
Yeah, and it was everything I needed too. So I feel like my personal opinion of visitation dreams is we get what we need. And I wasn't getting what I needed, but it came. You know what I mean? Sometimes it just takes a little bit of time.
Well, I think this is the big thing when it comes to these dreams is that, you know, that's why we can't tell if the visitation or not because our mind knows what we need, right? But also the deceased knows what we need. And so that's why you can't ever really figure it out because they also know what you need from where they're standing. And so these dreams tend to give you exactly what you need. And they're short too. Like a lot of these dreams aren't as long as normal dreams, but they know exactly what to say, how to say it, and then they sort of vanish or disappear for the most part. But yeah, so it's so amazing you had those dreams, and I like how you shared how they changed as your grief changed.
Yeah, definitely did. I was a hot mess during the first one.
But hey, look at you now, right?
Yeah, look at me now. But honestly, not getting what I needed out of that dream pushed me to work harder. But maybe that's because I was familiar with dreaming. But it really did push me to work through some stuff so that I could, because I needed something that I wasn't getting. So
right. And a lot of people would say they don't have that knowledge that you had.
Yeah.
Because if someone had that first dream, a lot of times if they didn't look at dreams before, they may get scared for the deceased, or they wonder what's wrong, you know, like, so they can just really turn to fear and anxiety. But you turn to understand, okay, what is this, you know, really sort of telling me about where I am in my loss? And then you're like, yep, okay, total mess, got it. Like, time to work through some of the stuff.
Yeah.
You want one of those dreams where you can say, okay, yeah. She's here and she loves me, yes.
Yeah.
She's proud of me.
I guess for me, though, it was because, yeah, sorry.
No, go on.
I was going to say, for me, dreams had been a mirror. Like since I was 12, I was writing dreams down and using them as a reflection of my subconscious. So I think that maybe that's why I got there quicker than somebody who's not familiar with dreams.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's interesting too, because all the other dreams we look at through a lens of it has something to do with our waking life, but these dreams are different. Like when it has the deceased in the imagery, they're different. They're just very different in the sense of what they look like for them, like for those comforting ones, what they look like, and then also how they feel. And so that's why it's like, I know like you could tell that that one was a visitation because you've looked at your dreams a lot and there's a different feeling towards that dream. Like, because you could have said, someone
Yeah.
else could say that first one was a visitation, but you're like, no, it didn't have that feeling to it. And I think that's something special because it doesn't happen all the time. And you'd think if it was just our mind doing this, we would have more dreams of this when we're stressed before they died, you know, like, but for whatever reason, it's only after they die we have these very comforting dreams. And that's the bizarre thing, because if I was my mind, I'd be like give me more positive energy. Or even after a divorce, you know, let them come in and tell them they're sorry or something, right? Like, or that, you know, like they miss me or whatever, but they don't, right? That's not part of that. So it's these dreams of the sea. There's something special that even, it's kind of funny because even my supervisor, when she first took me on, she didn't really know, you know, what these dreams were, but as she's read these dreams, she's sort of got a better understanding of how amazing they are, because she worked with nightmares her whole career and worked with dreams in general as a clinical psychologist. But these dreams have been, she says, I see so much in these dreams and they're just so different. Some of them are familiar, but there's other ones that are very, very different. And she's like, this is just an amazing sort of field. And I think hopefully more people will study this, because I say I'm just looking at dreams of deceased, but there's like 1,000 questions I have just in that area. And hopefully one day more people will come on board, and to give it the recognition of what it is, to be able to talk about these dreams in their support groups and with their clients. Because as I said, that one woman, was it 40 years of, you know, helping people through complicated grief. She asked about nightmares. She never once asked about dreams of the deceased. And they could have been nightmares, or there's a theory that I don't even know yet, but if we may be having negative dreams in general, but when the deceased is present, we have positive dreams. And that's just very bizarre that, you know, if that's the case. But I'm hoping to look at that as I move forward to sort of see, you know, what's so special, because it is possible that your other dreams may be negative, but the dreams with the deceased are the ones that remain positive.
Yeah, that I would love to know when you get to that answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm sure you'll be talking about it when you figure it out.
Yeah.
So I do want to let the audience know too. I think that was most of my questions. I didn't see too many more questions pop up, so I want to be conscious of your time. But I do want the audience to know we've linked your information. So if they want to find you and they want to find out more, and then you were talking about your group, if you want to talk about your grief dreams and get it all out there, I've linked it. It's linked in the recommended groups on this page. So if you scroll to the top of the group, you'll see it as a link. So
amazing.
And I'm going to leave it there because I know so many people have grief dreams.
Yeah. And so. If you, and I also started a podcast, so the Grief Dreams podcast. Yeah. And a lot of those people have dreams. And so if you really like hearing about these dreams, we have, I think, episode 55, 56, we had a recap of, you know, some of the better dreams or the more profound dreams people have had throughout the last year. So that's a good way to actually look at those, just hear more about these dreams. But yeah, so the podcast, the whole reason we started that is because through the research, I only collect dreams. I don't collect their story and their journey. And so the podcast really is about their journey, you know, and basically how dreams incorporate with that and with their grief and how they feel afterwards. And also what dream they want to have. And that's sort of one of my, the beautiful things at the end, because a lot of people who, if you haven't had a dream yet, just ask yourself what dream you'd want to have. Because a lot of people don't know. They just say, I just want one. Well, really, you know, it could be, you know, there's 1,000 possibilities. Let's narrow it down. What dream would you really want? And to really sit with not only what do you want said, what do you want done, where do you want to be, what do you want to wear, what age you want to be, really put it all out and write it down. And I think that will help people really figure out what dream they want. And then maybe they'll remember that type of dream. Yeah.
I love that. That's great. Now I'm sitting here thinking, like, what dream do I want next? But that's awesome. So the podcast link is also included in this video. So if you go to the description of this video, the podcast link is there, the website's there. His group is a recommended group here, so you should be able to find it.
Amazing.
Is there anything else you want to share with the audience?
No, that was really it, and I don't want to take too much of everyone's time too. But I just want to
Yeah.
thank you for having sort of a platform for people to talk about their loss and their grief from all over the world, I'm guessing, that you have in your group. And even
Yeah.
having me on and taking the extra effort in your life to search for answers for yourself, but also for other people to learn more about what's going on in the world of grief. And hopefully I helped a couple people today. And hopefully we meet again someday and we can talk more about sort of the research and it's also life in general.
Yeah, I would love that. And thank you again for joining us.
And thank you for sharing your
All
dream. I
right.
gotta say that
Bye,
too.
Joshua. Bye, guys.